Hello, how are you? How you doing? Bonjour, whatever. This is my first YouTube video, and I don't even know where to begin because these last 2 weeks have been 3 weeks. It's been now 2 weeks. I can't even recall because I feel like I haven't been really living this. I feel like this is not my life. I am not living in 2020, seeing what I'm seeing and hearing what I'm hearing. But I know that this is an important time, and I just want to be a part of the conversation. My name is Lewis, by the way, for those of you who don't know. So yeah, I understand the gravity of all of this, and I just want to add something to it. I bit my damn lip, so I don't know if it's bleeding or not. But anyways, I just want to add something to it. I just want to maybe impart some knowledge because I understand that not everyone knows the buildup of this. This is not new. This didn't just happen with George Floyd's death on May 25th, 2020. This didn't just happen with Trayvon's in 2012. This is 401 years of this. This is 401 years in the making. So this outcry and this just this kind of eruption, I think that's the word I can give to it. Just this kind of eruption of just all the feelings that Black people especially have had, and then just anyone who gives a F about society has, and gives a F about humanity. And so I just wanted to start there. I just wanted to give my introduction, whatever. I'm new to YouTube, so we'll grow together. I will learn this and I'll get better with time, I hope. But anyways, so I lost my train of thought. This is going to be conversational. I'm not going to sit here and lecture. I'm just going to talk. I am just going to give my honest take on everything. In this video, I'm going to start with just the history of policing Black people and how policing Black people is just really, really steeped in racism and anti-Blackness, to be specific, and how just the origin of the American police force, quote unquote, and how we are here today still going through something that I'm sure many people thought we got rid of 50 years ago, but we did not. Excuse me, one second. We just reimagined it. We didn't. It was no more overt. It became very covert and even more institutional than it already was. So, just to go back to the start of policing Black people and the police force, like I said, steeped in racism. It started as a slave patrol force, and before I get into that, police are meant to, the idea of policing, the institution of policing is to protect white wealth. It is for white comfort. It is for whiteness. It is not for anyone that does not fit in that bubble. If you are not that, then sorry, the police really aren't there for you. So with slave patrols, with the growing population of slaves, people feared rebellions, and of course people are disgruntled with being in bondage. Call them crazy, but it's really not the most fun thing you can imagine. But anyways, just amid all of those worries, slave patrols became a thing to just make sure that slaves know their place in society. Make sure that there is beyond a shadow of a doubt not a thought in a slave's mind that he should or even could rebel against his master. So they, of course, like I said, protecting white wealth. Slaves were capital. And of course, that's also what police protect. They protect capital. And so let me get back on track. I have my computer in front of me, but I only use it in times that I actually need to look something up. But anyways, they were protecting that. And of course, these white people don't want these slaves just roaming around. How dare this Black man, Black woman, Black whatever, Black person be found outside of a plantation. So they were for capturing and just to really prevent any rebellions. And so, and then of course the slave codes that prevented slaves from ever becoming literate. They couldn't gather in groups to worship. I don't think they could marry. And really just, they're just basically property. The slave codes were to restrict any form of human rights, any form of anything from them. Like, you are just here to do what we tell you to do. And so as that came, and as that furthered, slavery grew and grew in America. So slave patrols grew, of course, and they were most popular in the South, of course, where slavery was found. But in the North, they were definitely present. And so as we go through history, and I'll just jump to emancipation, and as slaves become free, now we have to reimagine how to restrict and continue to oppress Black people. Because and when people like try to say like not all cops, or like maybe the police can reform, or maybe police can do that, and maybe police can do this, no, the police have never gone through. The police force is still the same police force that I am describing right now. The police force we see in 2020 still holds the same values they did in 1800. And so the police have never gone through some type of renaissance. They have never reconciled that history. They have never kind of disavowed that history that they were founded upon. So as slaves become free, we start to see the Black codes. The slave codes are reimagined to basically the Black codes. And then they criminalize vagrancy, which is like being unemployed. They criminalize, basically still gathering in public space. And one of my friends tweeted yesterday, he like responded to a tweet and talked about how the restriction of public space by police officers is just steeped in racism. It's steeped in anti-Blackness. And so that became a crime under the Black codes. And all of these codes, they were called the Black codes, and they were specifically like, white people couldn't go to jail for this. If you were Black and I'm sorry. But anyways, like I said, this is conversational. I'm talking to you how I would talk to a friend, how I would talk to my mother downstairs. But anyways, let me get back on track before I digress even further. But anyway, the Black codes, and they were just reimagining slavery. And before slavery, jails were predominantly white. Like, slaves really didn't occupy jail cells because they were always on the plantation, so what could they go to jail for? But as we see the emancipation go, and as we see the emancipation come, and we see Black people become free, we start to see a growing population of Black criminals and Black people being attached to just criminality and just criminal behavior. And the vagrancy, like I said, not being employed. And Black people, you couldn't display like public drunkenness. That would be like, they would throw you in jail for that. And where it was not illegal for a white person to be publicly drunk. And you couldn't own property, you couldn't bear arms, you couldn't testify in court against a white person. And so it was still declaring Black people as second-class citizens. Like, we may not be able to keep you on the plantation and make you pick cotton for 16 hours a day, but we're going to make sure life is so restricted from you, and make sure that just the luxury of free space and like just roaming a country that you live in, just walking up a street or whatever, and we're going to make sure that is just almost impossible for you to do. And so, although like slaves are free, they didn't know how to read or write, so they had to go back to basically working on the plantations that that held them captive, that held them in bondage. And after the Civil War, of course, the Southern economy was in tatters, and I lost my train of thought again. The Southern economy was in tatters after the Civil War. And of course, after that, they had to just find a way to bring capital back in. Like, they knew they were not going to sustain without it. So the police force knowing these black codes are in place, of course, law enforcers, as they are, start to just like exploit this to the fullest extent that they can. Like black people, like if you were unemployed, it's illegal, you're going to jail. Publicly drunk, illegal, you're going to jail. Everything, like just being outside, they would just take you and put you in jail. And so that goes. And let me say this before I continue. This was all happening during what is called Reconstruction, which was Reconstruction for white wealth and white people, because it didn't reconstruct or construct anything for black people. It only just, like, we were free from the plantation, but I mean, now go find something to do, but you don't have anything. And that was the 40 acres and a mule, which I'm still waiting on June 10th, 2020, 155 years later. I don't have 40 acres or a single mule. But anyways, reparations is a video for another day, and we'll get there. So black people start to go to prison, go to jails, and just droves. You start to see black people working on the plantations that they used to be enslaved by. And then we see convict leasing, which is when you go to jail and your prison can basically lease you out to a plantation and make you work for however long that plantation wants you to work for. And so that becomes like how the Southern economy begins to rebuild. It begins to rebuild itself on the backs and the blood and the tears of black people. And of course, police are at the forefront of this. Police, just because black people are free does not mean that the police force just wiped all memory of what black people once were, enslaved, from their minds. They still saw black people as just animals and just an inferior race to white people. So we see that, and that continues. And then Jim Crow laws, of course, come into full effect, and police have they begin to exploit those to the fullest extent that they can. And of course, before I even continue, the KKK, which arose from Reconstruction, and of course we see it today in 2020, were also a part. They were like an extrajudicial force in policing black people and killing black people and doing anything that they can do with no punishment from the law. So they were basically given, they were basically given free reign what to do over black people without police intervention. Because these cops, of course, after slavery was emancipated, we start to see the formation of police departments, and slave patrols and everything. We start to actually see police departments come into formation and police their regions or whatever. And I'm pretty sure different states had different slave codes, but more or less it was like along the same lines. Nothing was drastically different. Give me a moment. I have some ice cold water for this nice stifling day we're having in Cleveland, Ohio. But anyways, where was I? Oh, different states had different slave codes, but nothing was drastically different. The point was still there. What they're going to just criminalize blackness, which has been a trend in American history, which has been almost a pillar of American history. We're going to make sure it is almost illegal to be black. And so Jim Crow comes. We see that, of course, that is in America for 100 years. And so before I continue to too far into the 20th century, I'm going to talk about their protection of capital and strikes and strike breakers, which cops served as, and how they are meant to uphold the status quo, which is capitalism and white supremacy. So I've discussed white supremacy a little bit, so I'm going to go into capital and how police will they will almost protect the Amazon building or Target before they would protect a human. And so, as we learned in history with strikes and labor and all of that, that was about getting your fair treatment as a worker. I am a human being. I cannot work 15 hours a day in these terrible conditions, people losing their lives, losing limbs, children working. And so police were charged with breaking that and keeping order. And so that is just like a little bit on their protection of capital. And then I'll just continue through like just the history of police and black people and how that like moved through Jim Crow and how what was I gonna say? How black people were not how black people are not well, I should say black people are like the I'm sorry. Anyone who knows me knows like I can go on, I can talk, but of course I have to find my train of thought because I'll lose it in a second. But anyways, black people were just like the central, like black people, the justice system was meant to keep black people like in its shackles, in its clutch. Black people, that's like I said after slavery, the 40 acres and a mule thing, that was supposed to be reparations, so slaves can catch up and build their wealth and create wealth among themselves, since white people owned plantations and had amassed great deals of wealth by that time. But slaves, you can't just kick them off the plantation and be like, well, now you should go make some money. But they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, they don't know how to do anything. But they have to go find a way in this world when they have been in this hell on earth for their entire life. And so that is and then, like I said, with the slave codes criminalizing black people and throwing them in jail. I'm sorry, I'm like repeating myself, but I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this. But anyways, okay, so I'll just go to the 20th century. So we jump to the 20th century. I'll just go to the civil rights movement. Why not? And of course, that was another bucking of the status quo with 1955 bus boycott and Rosa Parks, and then we see leaders, Martin Luther King, begin to emerge from these movements, and so that became another way for police to remind black people where they stand. You will sit in the waiting rooms, we want you to. You will drink from the water fountains, we want you to. You will live in the neighborhoods, we want you to. And so police, like as black people began to organize, and the bus boycott lasted almost 400 days and stuff like that, and just marching in the street, police, of course, that disrupts white comfort. White people don't want to see this. I don't want to walk out my door and see 300 black people walking down the street. And so police, of course, hose, dogs, beat, anything or just arrest. Of course, Martin Luther King wrote a very profound letter from Birmingham jail, because he was bucking the status quo. And of course, that's what police, that is all they are meant to do, is uphold that. And like I said, I don't care if your husband is a cop. I don't care if your mom's a cop. I don't care if you're a cop. I don't care if your brother's a cop. I don't care. All cops are, you finish it. You make that be whatever you want it to be. But I know what I say. And they have never gone through some type of reform, and they have never gone through some type of renaissance where the police have become this truly protect and serve force that they want us to believe. I'm like, that is just purely propaganda that we have almost come to accept. But I feel like what's happened with George Floyd has really made a lot of people just question the role of police in society, especially in relation to black people. Of course, black people, we've always known, and we've always like the relationship we have with police has always been so strained, because police in black communities, they make sure they just they almost try to strangle any bit of life, any bit of anything out of the community, because they want black people to know their place. And that has been said in movies, that has been said in so many things about. And I was just watching Black Klansman, Spike Lee's movie, and the cop, and it was a black man that was a cop, and when his one of his coworkers was just saying, like, they were in an argument or whatever, and he said he had been keeping black people in their place for 15 years, however long he had been on the force. But anyways, so let me just go back to the civil rights movement. That was, of course, another, like, it almost like how slavery had to come about with just so much, how the emancipation of slavery had to come about with so much violence, and it was no kumbaya, as people would love for us to believe, that the slave masters end up feeling guilty after a while, and just let all the slaves go. Abraham Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, and that was the end of it. So we move ahead 100 years to the Civil Rights Movement, and we begin to see black people organizing, but police, of course, beating them, brutalizing them, killing them. I'm sure a lot of people lost their life during that movement. But so we see that, and of course, the Civil Rights Movement was no walk in the park. The Civil Rights Movement started in 1955 with the Montgomery bus boycott, and went into about 68 when Dr. King was assassinated. And so that's 13 years of just a lot. And not every single march was just this locked arms, smile, and let's just beg these cops to not beat us today. Because as we see, when Martin Luther King peacefully marched across a bridge, Bloody Sunday, in Selma, Alabama, just shortly after he marched, it probably hadn't been 10 minutes after he crossed the bridge, they beat every single protester they saw. And and what I've been saying with this, I'm like jumping all around now, but what I've been saying with the protests we're seeing now, there is no peaceful protest with the police. They have this false sense of power that they're here. I don't know if you guys can see my hand. They're here, and everyone else is supposed to be here, and we're supposed to just accept that. They are, especially with black people, they want black people to just accept that they are going to harass, kill, and do whatever they want to do to us, and we are supposed to just live with it. And what I was saying with the justice system being built on the backs of black people and built at the expense of black people. A lot of black people went to jail for nothing. A man in Alabama is sitting in jail right now for $9, and they gave him life in prison in 1982. It's been 38 years. So, so the justice system, as it is called now, the new Jim Crow, was meant to almost replicate slavery down to a science, down to everything that we saw with slavery, but now we're just going to make it legal. And I'm so hot. And 1 second, let me open the window. We're gonna replicate slavery into. Oh yeah, I didn't even show you guys my I Can't Breathe shirt. We got it about a week ago now. Me, my mom, and my dad. And so, it was meant to replicate slavery almost to its exact form. The shackles, the cages, and of course the prison labor that was found in convict leasing. And so we, 1 second, I'm going to actually use my computer this time. I'm going to pull up a quote from, I have it right here. Give me just a moment. But I'll keep talking while I'm doing this. But we have come to almost black and white alike, and everyone else have almost come to accept the reality and the gruesomeness of our justice system. I know I won't accept it, and I know a lot of people are beginning to radicalized, as the channel was called. And just a word on that, it's like half joke, half dead serious, because I think that these center of the road, please everyone, police reforms have gotten us nowhere. They've almost been regressive, and police departments have worked around these reforms and these just rules that are supposed to be in place to keep them honest. They've been working around them for a very long time. So I feel like that's why I say we need to just completely just take a sweeping, radical approach to this, abolish them. Defunding is a step towards abolishing. We're not just going to defund and let that be the end of it. We are going to defund them down to 0. I don't want 1. I don't want 2. I don't want them sprinkled here and there. I don't want any of them. We need to find another way to come up with this, because we see that this system clearly doesn't work. What has gotten better? Like, we've gotten to the point, and like I said, George Floyd's death was like a tipping point, because we have gotten to a point of allowing police to get away with murder. I was going to say get away with any and everything, but no, murder, because Philando Castile's murderers are free. Tamir Rice, which happened right here in my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, the man who killed him is still free. There was, I cannot remember, but it was another couple in Cleveland, Ohio. They were shot 133 times, 137 times, something like that. But that man is still free. And so the justice system, as I said, from its founding, has been built at the expense and on the backs of black people. And of course, police officers are part of the justice system, criminal justice system. And they know that they can just get away with it. And so there's no reforming that. There is no room for the not all cops propaganda, because I don't care if this man is just a saint outside of work. Why? And like, if he wants to really just do this, if he wants to really just help his community, why do you have to help your community with a gun on your hip? Go be a social worker. Go be a teacher. If you want to help kids, go be a teacher. Like, I mean, what is the gun? Why do you need this pseudo power, this power that you think this badge gives you to help someone out? Think about it. But anyways, and a note on just the police getting away with murder. Trayvon Martin, who was killed by a civilian, was murdered, 2012. I was 14 years old, turning 14 years old when he was murdered. I am 22 years old, and I've grown up watching, or a good part of my growing up watching, black people be murdered in my face on television, seeing videos of the life being choked out of men and women. I can't breathe, like almost not even coming out of their mouth, but almost like falling, like they can't even really say it, just almost falling out of their mouth. I cannot breathe. And I mean, those are their last words. They die after that. And how we see that, and of course, not of course, but sometimes, or we have to almost just force the justice system to take its course and charge these people, and then they get acquitted. So there just needs to be, like I said, we need to abolish the police, and then there needs to be a sweeping, radical reform of the intricacies of the justice system. And with the black codes, to go back to that for a second, it explicitly said in the black codes that black people were to be more severely punished than their white counterparts. So I, a black man, could go steal $3 from someone, and they would, of course, incarcerate me and put me in convict leasing. But a white man could probably do the same thing and get off. He might, I'm sure he'll go to jail, but it won't be nearly as severe as mine is. And so that idea of make sure you charge black people harsher, or make sure you just come down on them with the full force of the justice system, and down in their neck, just because of the simple fact that their black is still present today. That has not gone anywhere. We see that with the prison industrial complex. We see that with the mass incarceration of black people in prisons. Black people make up 13% of the U.S. population, but we make up 34% of the prison population. And after the civil rights movement, well, let me go back to the civil rights movement actually, because I don't think I fully explained it enough. But anyways, civil rights comes along. Martin Luther King's marching, and we see, of course, and Martin Luther King is like the face of nonviolent protest, as we always see. Why can't you do what Martin Luther King did? And then I always say, well, they killed him too. He peacefully protested. He took his, he was a preacher, of course. And so he took his, the basis of his movement from the Word of God and did it peacefully and was still assassinated. So, I mean, what do you want next? And I was reading a quote from, I can't remember the name of the man. One of you, I'm going to say it and maybe one of you know it. But it was saying basically how nonviolent protest only works when you're appealing to someone with a conscience. Only when you're appealing to someone with a conscience. If you know that the person you're talking to is going to hear you, they care how you feel, they care how their actions make you feel. But since America has never cared about black people, it has never cared about how they treated black people, how the policies and the laws that are on the books, I should say, that are on the books about black people, since they don't care about that, it's not going to work. We could march. We have been marching for 60 years now. We have been marching for equality. We have been marching just to be treated like people. This takes me to Al Sharpton's point at George Floyd's funeral. We've been marching for you all to get your foot off our neck, get your knee off our neck, get off our neck so we can be what we want to be, and we can grow, and we just want to be left alone. The justice system will not leave black people alone. Police will not leave black people alone. In 2020, I was just in Bay Village with my mom, which is a very white suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and we were on our way back to the freeway, and we see this man stopped, and so he was a black man, and it is like a swarm of, has to be like 5 police cars around him, all 4 of his doors open and his trunk, searching this man because, and I know this from personal experience, they just want to know, why is your black behind in this neighborhood with this nice car? Because he drove a beautiful car. And so they're making sure that they come down on him just with their full force to make sure that he knows you are not wanted here. And I had this similar experience. They didn't search my car, but it was about 5 years ago. I was leaving a friend's house in Bay Village, and what was I going to say? I was leaving a friend's house in Bay Village, and I probably was not 3 minutes from his house, and I got pulled over. And they just asked me what was I doing out there. They literally asked me, what are you doing out here? And I was like, I'm coming from my friend's house. They didn't run my license. They didn't do anything. I said that, and they left. Just making sure I know you are not wanted here. You are not supposed to be here, so get out. And that's what they were doing with that man I saw. And me and my mom kept a watchful eye just to make sure that, yeah, everything was everything, that this was just going to remain a traffic stop. And this traffic stop then didn't turn into another hashtag. And so just back to the idea of police restricting public space. Driving while black is damn near a crime. Excuse my language, but it is nearly a crime. I was in Rocky River, another lily white suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and I stopped too long at a stop sign. That was his claim anyway. I waited too long at a stop sign, and I got pulled over. And it was probably 15 minutes of questioning. He ran my license, and I was 16 when this happened. Ran my license. I was in the car with my friend Richard, and ran his license too, I believe. They tried to act like his car key was a weapon. They wanted something to come of that. And they ran my license, gave it back to me. and basically just wondering, why are you out here? And so, and I say that to say, back to the civil rights movement, black people, we have tried with the nonviolence, and I'm never about anyone getting harmed. I would love if this would have been taken care of in 1968 or in 1963.